Today's episode is brought to you by LacrosseMonkey. Be sure to use promo code PODCAST10 upon checkout. That's PODCAST, the number 10, at checkout. Some exclusions may apply. PODCAST10, 10% off your entire order at lacrossemonkey.com. With that being said, let's get into it.
What's the name of this podcast again?
Lane win by Costabile. Charging toward the net. He scores! It is a storybook game.
All right, what is up, guys? Welcome to this week's episode of Monkey Business, your lacrosse podcast brought to you by MonkeySports. You were listening to the MonkeySports podcast. We're here with Jason and Hank. Hank, how we doing?
Hello, Jason. I'm great. Excited for this one. Cool interview we got.
Yeah, no, Greg was great. So ECD Greg, for those of you that don't know, the founder of ECD, started it in his basement. He kind of talks about really everything from the very humble beginnings back over a decade ago to today. So yeah, great interview with Greg later on. But ECD just launched the LTX. If you were listening to this right now, it is available on LacrosseMonkey as we speak.
Today.
Check it out.
2020.
Hank, thoughts, comments, concerns?
Awesome. I got a chance to go check it out. Not check it out early, but we had it available in stock a little early. Got to play with it a little bit. Feels awesome. Feels great in your hands. Light, super stiff. It's like the stiffest carbon they make. Super light shaft. I think it's going to be a real game changer for the carbon, and they layer it differently now. It's a different technology, so I think it's going to be cool.
So it's something. Greg had a video that came out, I guess, right before the launch about its.
About a week ago.
Yeah, the way they layer it is very similar to hockey sticks, I guess, and it makes it a lot more lightweight and a little bit more. It's much stiffer for carbon shafts, which I think is something that is a bit of a rarity. So definitely worth checking out if you're a carbon fan, and especially cool again when we talk to Greg and when you kind of hear where they started when he's melting his hands on wax in his basement, and now they're at a point where they're making, carbon shafts and heads, and they've got stars in the PLL and stuff like that.
And
it's
potentially
awesome
resetting the carbon shaft market with this one.
Yeah, absolutely. But speaking of that, pros in the PLL, been a ton of Premier Lacrosse
PLL
League news. Really from this last week, this last couple days. We had the lottery for the entry draft, a couple big trades. Yep. Let's start with the trades.
Yes.
Biggest one. So, Sergio Salcido for Miles Jones.
One of my
and
favorites.
A pick.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sergio Salcido and a pick for Miles Jones.
Correct.
Got that backwards. You're high on Sergio
Love
Salcido.
Sergio.
What do you think of this move?
Great for Sergio. Going to an awesome team, getting a chance to play with a bunch of great players. Was a guy that was unprotected in the expansion draft as well. So obviously they didn't want him. Had no interest
Shocked he was not taken by the Water Dogs.
Right? Like I was like, oh, first mini, Sergio, take him. Part of a line,
Easy.
tiny,
Yep.
shoots the freaking heck out of the ball.
Yep.
Like, incredible player. And then Miles Jones, who had kind of a down year this past year. I mean, he had a lot going on. It didn't seem like he was, not that he wasn't 100% invested. He just didn't have his best year as a lacrosse player. And Sergio, like he said on his own Instagram, as well as I think on the Unbuckled pod, that he's outperformed Miles Jones every year of their career, stats-wise. So, he's confident, he's ready to go, and we'll see how Miles Jones can adjust to his new life.
The thing with Miles, though, I kind of agree he did kind of have not a year that everyone was expecting, but he's just a freak athlete.
Yep.
The dude could be a power forward in the NBA. He is a monster. So, regardless of whether he's out scoring, 6 goals a game or not, you've got to respect him because he could step into a 20-yard shot at any point.
He's got a lot of gravity to him, right? You just naturally want to be near him when he's on the field and off the field as a personality and someone who's a face of the league. That's a good pickup for any team.
Mm-hmm. We also had the entry-level draft lottery.
No love for Romar?
Oh, yeah, the Romar Dennis move as well. Yeah, the body for a pick, which is always something kind of weird in pro sports. I think it's probably more just salaries shifting around. But, yeah, thoughts on the Romar Dennis move?
It was a weird pick at the time. I think I commented on the PLL through the LacrosseMonkey page. So I just said, huh? With just a bunch of dots. Because Romar gets moved to the Atlas with a third-round pick, which is the number 20 pick in the draft, for just the number 17 pick in the draft. So they moved up 3 spots and moved the bodies. And we were saying around the office, probably just a salary dump here.
You'd think,
just trying to move on.
Yeah. You improve your draft stock, a little bit. You move up 3 spots, which, who knows, maybe that has implications that are bigger than, we're not the ones in scouting PLL stuff.
But it doesn't, it doesn't really get you into the elite top tier of Tewaaraton finalists or All-American guys coming out of college. It just moves you up a little bit. I don't know. Felt like a weird move, but
we'll see.
We'll see.
It's all that stuff. Every time there's a pick, you can't really decide a winner.
No, for sure.
Beforehand or not. So with the entry-level draft coming up here in a couple of weeks, it will happen before the time we have another episode.
On the 16th, I believe.
Who do you think is going to join the league? So it's not the new player, or it's not the
rookie draft. No.
Right. So who do you think is going to be first couple of picks?
Pinnell? Robbie?
I mean, it has to be, right?
It has to be Robbie.
So he Instagrammed free agent season and him like working out hard. So his contract with the Lizards has run out. It was a 2-year deal. Started in between the PLL starting. It has to be, right? Like, sure, he's getting older, but he still dominates.
He's a good player, man.
All-time record holder in the MLL, like
still fast, still strong.
So outside of Pinnell, I'm really curious to see, like, there's a lot of those kind of fringe guys. Yeah, like our boy Bryce Wasserman, friend of the program. First ever Monkey Business podcast, actually, funny enough, was Bryce Wasserman. But unrelated,
Subtle
like,
plug.
you think a guy like him goes? I mean, I don't know. How big is the entry draft?
I don't know. Like, is it going to be like the supplemental draft in the NFL when, like, 5 guys get picked? Remember
that's
Terrell
my
Pryor
guess,
got
right?
picked up for, like, a 3rd-round pick by the Raiders? It was something weird like that.
Yeah, there's all those weird, and baseball's got, like, the Rule 5
Supplementals,
and all that.
yeah. So I think it's going to be similar to that, where, like, maybe some guys go, but I don't think it's going to be huge. And then if you don't get
You're
drafted,
spinning a roster spot, yeah.
but then if you don't get drafted, are you now a free agent? Now you can go anywhere? Like, how does this work? We should have done research.
Yeah, we probably should have. Somebody that's wired in and knows the PLL better than us, hit us up on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Let us know how this works, because we didn't do our research well enough.
Eat that us, huh?
Yeah. Well, all right.
Speaking of smart people.
Speaking of people that know the PLL and are far smarter than us.
And know lacrosse more.
Greg Keneally from ECD Greg. Hank, I'll let you line this one up.
Yeah, man. ECD Greg, we just hit him up. He hit us up on Instagram. Was like, hey, heard your podcast. I'm coming on. And we're like, yes, please. You're the man. Started off as just a kid in Baltimore, just putting wax on Gimalex mesh, and has grown to a company that has disrupted the entire market. Has, like we said, might reset the shaft market with this new LTX. They've got heads, they've got gear, they've dominate the media space. So ECD Greg coming on the Monkey Business podcast, sharing some knowledge with you guys. Let's check it out. Greg, how's it going, man?
Going really well. Really excited to be on the podcast. Been listening for a while. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Kind of want to get back and talk about your history with sort of the game of lacrosse and sort of where you came from. What I was really interested in when I was going through y'all's story is, like, what part of stringing really interested you to begin with? Like, what was the moment where you're like, oh, lacrosse heads, like, this is something I really want to get into?
It's hard to tell because I was stringing, or at least messing around with stringing at a time when I can't even really remember that much of my life. It was middle school. I remember messing around with all my pockets, like on the bus to and from school, and I'd have a backpack pocket stuffed full of strings. But I don't remember exactly why I started messing around with it, because obviously at that point there was no internet or a way for me to, find out about other people doing it. So I would mess around with my sticks on the way to and from middle school, and then that kind of grew into me string my own sticks. And I think once I got a little older, I realized that the pre-strung sticks I was buying in my heads weren't cutting it. I remember very specifically getting one of the first Evos with the pre-strung pocket and trying it out and it not working. And then I think from then on, I decided I was going to string all my own sticks because obviously the factory stuff, strung stuff wasn't working for me. And then that kind of trickled over to my brother and then my teammates.
So when it comes to the stringing, was the fact of like perfecting the skill something that really interested you, or were you just kind of like messing around, just trying to see what was best for you, like from stick to stick?
Yeah, back then I was just messing around just to get my own sticks dialed in. I would do all kinds of weird stuff like corner pockets, and I had a stick that had like 10 shooting strings, and it was just messing around because I thought it was fun. It was something to do. It was like a little hobby. I mean, a lot of them didn't work very well, but it was a fun thing for me to mess around with my free time, and then also just trying to make sure my sticks were throwing well. But even then, I didn't fully understand, what it meant for a stick to throw well. I was just sort of having some fun.
So you were messing around, obviously, with stringing different sticks and, like you said, doing corner pockets and stuff like that. When was when did you sort of turn that corner and say, like, hey, we should get in to start making mesh ourselves instead of just using what's already available or using, what you can buy out of the store?
Well, my whole life I strung sticks for myself and my brother, but that was pretty much it. A couple of friends here and there, not a lot. But then in college, since we're all together all the time, there was a need to have someone string the sticks. So I was that guy for a lot of people on the team. And it was around then, like sophomore, junior, senior year, that I discovered the online stringing community and started to learn a lot from pictures of string jobs. Obviously, there weren't tutorials, but you could look at pictures and figure out how certain things were done. Mm-hmm. And that's when my stringing started to get a little more technical and a little bit better performing. And then after I graduated, I had a summer off before I was going to go to graduate school to get my master's in accounting. And then I decided, instead of going back to working at snack bar and country club like I had for the last decade. I wasn't going to make mesh yet, but I was going to string some sticks and dye them, and basically have a service-based business that I would try and expand locally. And I made a little website. I would put them on eBay or listings on Craigslist or whatever, wherever I could put it to have people find it. And it was, I started shooting YouTube videos before the mesh even existed. It was just about dyes and pockets for the first few. But in the back of my mind, I was like, my senior year in college, our turf field was condemned. I guess it was too old, and there was like ACL concerns or something.
Yeah, asbestos or something.
So it was rough. So we played on the grass practice field, and that was a tough year for all of our pockets with the mesh that we had. So that was in the back of my mind. I had tried pretty much everything I could find, and nothing worked through that season. And later in 2011, sort of closer to the end of the summer, is when I decided to mess around with some wax mesh coatings, and there was a couple people doing it on the forums or whatever, so that's when I gave it a try.
So going off that kind of pre-YouTube era, you just mentioned the forums there. Was there like certain forums that were just like dedicated to lacrosse stringing, or was it like people using other websites and like turning them into kind of like stringing areas or stringing communities?
Yeah, so it was on the Inside Lacrosse forums, and they had a thread, or I guess it was a thread called the Stick Doctors Lounge, and it was just all people posting threads about their dyes and stringing, and it was a pretty tight-knit community. I don't think there were a lot of people on there, but a lot of people knew what they were talking about, and so that's where I learned a lot of my early stuff.
Was it something, so Hank mentioned, the kind of the pre-YouTube, because you guys are really the first ones that got out and were, or seemingly the first ones that were, making stringing videos and stuff more mainstream. Was it something that you thought, I want to bring this to the light, or is it just like, hey, this tight-knit community, I want to just help them out a little bit?
Yeah, we were definitely not the first one to do a string tutorial on YouTube. I think STX has one with Brendan Mundorf that's been on there for like ages. But we were the first ones to do it consistently.
Right, definitely to make it mainstream.
Yeah, instead of making a tutorial for a specific head in the beginning, I did them for ways to do the knots, which wasn't on there, and then built out, all the top strings, and we definitely had the most tutorials. But back when you'd look at these decisions 10 years later and you say, oh, what a great idea it was to put lacrosse stringing information on YouTube, Greg, but, so smart. But back then, I don't even think it was even like no master plan. It was just like, I don't know, I'm doing this thing, but got a webcam, I'll just toss it on there. I never thought that people would watch it. I honestly don't even remember why I decided to do it. It just seemed like something fun to do in the moment.
So going back to that kind of that era, why do you think mesh was so bad back in like the late 2000s era? Like what about it specifically in the technology or how it was made that made it something that you wanted to improve and make better?
Well, it's not that it was so bad. It's that it was, had been around for too long. Everything evolves, and it's easy to sit here and say, well, with the new iPhone, the iPhone 1, well, that's a terrible iPhone. But for its time, it was pretty good. Compared to traditional, the mesh that was out was great. It lasted way longer and was way less maintenance, but that type of mesh went on for, I think, too long. And the problem was it was made of nylon with like a standard coating, and so it absorbed moisture. Nylon's known for absorbing moisture, and then it elongates when it absorbs that moisture, and that's why pockets bag out. And also the coating stiffness just wasn't dialed in. It took too long to break a pocket in, and then it had a certain sweet spot life that was not very long, maybe a month or two, and then after that it was then too soft, or it didn't stick around in the sweet spot for long enough. So doing the wax, let it be waterproof, but also have a stiffness level that was less variable. The wax doesn't break down over time like the old mesh coatings did.
So you said you were about to go back to school to get your master's in accounting. So I mean, obviously your formal schooling was not in any kind of engineering or things like that. Was the kind of figuring out which mesh works, was that just trial and error? Like, oh yeah, we're going to try something that's not nylon and just see what happens? Or were those forums kind of helpful for, hey, here's an idea of how we kind of make this better or continue to improve this? Because obviously now it's changed mesh altogether.
Yeah, no formal product development background for sure, all financial. Early times, it was just like mess around with a coating or whatever, or some wax formulation in the basement that was probably pulled from like a lip balm recipe somewhere, and then I would take it out to a local field, run it out of the water fountain, and just shoot and see how it felt. I don't think it took too many iterations to get to what I ended up making long term. I mean, the formula is still the same. From the one in 2011, the original, handful of pieces were.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what sort of research and, like, creation are you doing to, like, actually make a piece of mesh? Is it, like, are you interweaving stuff on top of each other? And, like, how did you learn how to do that in the first place? Would you go to the library?
No, so back then I was just doing the coding part, and the actual base mesh was woven by the guys out in Arizona, and I was basically just buying uncoated mesh off their website. It wasn't like a working relationship at all. I was just some dude buying soft mesh off gymwax.com and then dipping it in some wax. So that's what the first mesh was built off of. And then when we started working on our hero line, the company looked a lot different. We had some people who knew what they were doing. We had a formal relationship with Gymalax, so we were able to do a lot of research about the yarns, the coatings, the tensions, the deniers, all that stuff.
So when you're waxing this mesh or anything, do you have any horror stories from, like, the beginning? Like, did you almost burn down a house? Did you overwax something? Like, anything bad happen?
Apple Garage days, I'm curious.
Yes. So the house we had it's an 1850s stone house. It's very old, and so the basement was super creepy. And I would be down there. So since I was working, a full-time job, and I was coaching, now work would be like 10 p.m. to 2 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd be down there by myself, and I only had like one little overhead light. And it was super creepy down there all the time. And so in the early times, I had some rudimentary process that required me to like burn my hands to nubs for every piece that I wanted to coat, because when you would put it in the hot wax, the piece of mesh would like roll up, and I'd have to like flatten it with my hands while it was still hot, because then it would dry flat. And then it would only take, a couple noises off distant in the basement in darkness for me to call it quits for the night, because it was pretty creepy down there.
Are you telling us the first few pieces of ECD wax mesh were haunted?
It's possible. There are rumors that the house is haunted. I actually still live there. Everybody else is gone, but my wife, my son, my two dogs, we all live there. And the basement still has wax on the floor, believe it or not.
So, Greg, kind of going more forward, we talked about those YouTube videos. Does it mean something to you personally to know that you're the first point of contact for a lot of kids to learn how to string a lacrosse head? Like, is there a certain relationship you have with that?
We've gotten some feedback that kids have picked up lacrosse, not just stringing, just playing the sport at all because of our videos. Because we've evolved to be a lot more than just a stringing. Now we've got highlights that show how exciting the sport is, and I think a lot of people stumble into it for the first time and see lacrosse, are introduced to the game through our highlights, and they can see how fun it is, how exciting, how fast-paced and physical, and they start playing the sport. And that's really important to us because obviously we all love the sport and want to share it with as many people as possible, and that's not something I ever thought would happen. So that's been some pretty cool feedback we've gotten from players.
So based on that media, I mean, obviously it's been cool to see, like you said, the kind of growth of the highlights and everything, and what felt like or what seemed to be something that was, while you were doing the stringing videos and stuff was just sort of on the side. How do you think the media has continued to grow with the company, whether that's been hand in hand or kind of independently of each other?
Yeah, we definitely have invested more time and effort in camera gear and learning, and we hired a full-time videographer for a long time who was really upping our production level. We upload probably more videos than ever now. It's at least 3 a week through the main part of the season of all types of different content. So we've definitely grown it as time has gone on. You've got highlights, tutorials, pro content, release commercials. There's like a whole litany of stuff we do. So it's a big focus of ours, but we don't try to push our products too much on there. A lot of it is just general lacrosse entertainment or knowledge. I think our philosophy is that we want to make fans of our content who maybe eventually will buy the product if they decide they like the brand. But it's definitely not, if you look on our stuff, a lot of it doesn't even have a mention of our products. If you go watch our highlights, there's no pushing of any heads or anything. It's just there for entertainment value.
Mm-hmm. So I'm actually curious. I appreciate that you brought that up because, and I know you kind of address this, especially when you do like, top 10 heads or best sticks of the year, whatever. Is it tough to kind of find that balance between, obviously, you stand by your products and you run a company that's trying to make money and trying to sell products, of course, but is it tough to kind of take what you're making or what you stand by and sort of take that out and just hope that it kind of ingratiates itself in? Or is it something that you've been doing reviews and stuff for so long that now it's like the product is another thing that can kind of have its own life cycle?
Yeah, that's definitely our philosophy, is to make really good products and provide really good customer service. And I think if you do those two things, the product will take off on its own. If you did a good job with the product, people are going to tell other people about how good it is, how much they love it, and that's marketing that is better than what you can buy, because they're going to trust their friend, coach, or teammate 10 times more than they trust some dude on the internet that they don't even know. So we prefer to let that passive word-of-mouth marketing do its work for our products. And that's how the mesh grew early. Obviously, I was doing very little marketing and very few people knew about our brand, but we were getting such good reviews. People were so excited about it that they'd tell their teammates, and then they would go buy it, and then they'd tell their teammates, and it has this exponential effect.
So going more into product and what you guys are doing, what do you think from all the things you guys have made has been your personal favorite product that you've ever put out there? From mesh to head to shaft, whatever. Like, what do you think has been the coolest thing and like excited you the most to put out?
That's a good question, because we've made a lot of stuff at this point. We have a lot of heads. I think the Mirage is still my favorite, just because it was our first head, and it's, everybody knows it's probably not the best head in the world. It was our first, and it was a learning experience, and there's a lot of things that we would have fixed, but I still play with it just because it was cool to have it, to be a kid growing up, going through catalogs, and then to be, have one of those heads that's in those catalogs. It was a pretty surreal experience, and so I've got the first Mirage that we ever made, and then the first one that I ever owned up above my desk. But this summer I played with the Mirage still.
So you were just saying your media doesn't intentionally tries not to push product. Well, as one of your retailers, we're happy for you to talk as much about product as you want. So don't feel like you need to hold back.
That's true.
When did it kind of click? Obviously, you had all this R&D with the mesh, and the mesh was doing successful and everything. When was the first thought of, hey, we should start getting into heads and shafts and that kind of thing?
Well, we first started working on the Mirage, I guess, back in 2015, and we actually did shafts before we did heads, which is usually not the progression that you would think it would go.
Especially coming from mesh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, back in 2014, right, you think the head would be a natural complement to a mesh product, but we saw a big market gap in 2013, 2014 of carbon fiber shafts. We felt like they were really going to take off, and there was nothing that was selling for under $140. So we came in with the carbon line, which was like the value carbon fiber shaft at $99 for a 30-inch. And that took off, and that was like our foot in the door for the carbon fiber shaft market, which I think now we're the market share leader in. And I think that ratio of people using carbon fiber to alloy continues to grow every single year. So we're really well positioned there. So we wanted shafts first just because we saw that market gap. And heads are really capital intensive. You have to invest in the mold.
Sure.
And at that stage of the company, we weren't really ready to do that. That felt like a big deal for us.
So technology-wise, when it comes to the shaft, do you foresee any like big changes to tech coming soon? I know there's a lot of people doing little niche things, but do you see like another metal coming in that can kind of change the game or anything like that?
That's a good question. We have pretty much 100% committed ourselves to carbon fiber. We think there's a lot more being done on the global scale of engineering on carbon fiber than there is on alloys. Lacrosse doesn't always have the luxury of having products developed specifically for it because it's too small. So we usually piggyback on automotive or aerospace. And so when the global economy is pushing product development for lighter airplanes, faster cars, more sustainable, then that means we can get that trickle down. But we have our eyes open for different metal products too, because that market is still large. But we won't launch another alloy shaft until we find something that would make it really different, because I feel like it's a crowded market in alloy shafts and there's not a lot of differentiation right now.
So what about carbon fiber do you think is like the best part for a lacrosse shaft? What do you think makes it so unique and usable in the game?
Well, one of my favorite things, I think I pitch on every defender, is that you can't bend it. You can break an alloy shaft, you can break a carbon fiber shaft, that's for sure. But everybody, and my brother had this problem his whole career, is that when you're a big deep hole, you bend shafts, 10 times a year. And people bend it back, or you just live with it. But the carbon fiber shafts are always going to snap right back, which is really nice. And the other thing with carbon fiber that's nice is you can put all these other features into it. You can have kick points and flex profiles, and all kinds of different weaves and materials. There's just a lot more flexibility, and I think you can break out of the traditional strength to weight ratio that metal shafts are sort of stuck in by adjusting the layup and the direction of the fibers, and there's just a lot more levers to pull and move around to make the product different.
So looking forward from an ECD side, something I'm sure that a lot of listeners are curious about, what can we expect from ECD in 2020 or looking forward?
Well, we have a new men's shaft this spring. We have actually 2 new men's shafts this spring, but one is a line extension. New women's shaft this spring. some really cool stuff at Final Four that I can't mention specifically yet.
Ooh, okay.
Same thing.
No podcast
Like,
exclusives for us?
yeah, no podcast exclusives. One of our big things that I think makes our releases cool is, number one, we don't do as many of them as other companies.
Yep, certainly.
So they're more rare and therefore more anticipated and more impactful. And we also try and keep them really secret, similar to what Apple does, so it creates that anticipation, like when people never know what we're working on.
So just kind of want to head back to the media stuff just for a second. Was running through some of y'all's videos just in preparation to this and stumbled upon your reel from the 2018 season. So you're out there filming a lot of these games that you guys are putting up, right, for highlights?
Almost all of them. Yeah. So like I mentioned, we hired a full-time videographer. His name is Josh Rotman. He actually shoots for the PLL now. And he was here for 2 years. And while he was here, I got the opportunity to learn a lot of the camera and shooting highlights, and did it a handful of times and found that I really liked it. So when he left, someone needed to shoot the highlights, and that person was me. So I went out and I did. The year after he left, I think it did 60 or 70, maybe even 80 games that year.
Jeez,
it was a lot of fun.
So were you just going to just different games every weekend, doing MIA one weekend, then college the next, or was it like multiple games in one day?
Usually, I only did more than one game in one day a handful of times, because that gets pretty grueling. And I still enjoy it, and if I hammer myself with it too much, it kind of starts to like kill the creative vibe that I try and go for, and I get a little less excited about it. But I'll do 3 or 4 games in a week for sure.
So last little thing here on media, was going through those videos like we said, and stumbled upon some of the review videos you guys have done, and there's some pretty interesting products. What do you think's like the craziest lacrosse equipment or training piece that you've ever seen and reviewed on one of those videos?
I'm trying to think. We do the lacrosse accessory one, which is cool because that usually captures like 3 smaller products all at once. The badass masks are pretty cool. Those guys are starting to pick up some traction in the NFL, I guess, where they make the custom face masks. I don't know that anyone's ever going to pick up on that lacrosse, but they're certainly cool. One odd one that was the most popular is the ball collector. It's like a thing based off a tennis ball product, I guess, but it's like a spring-looking wheel that you roll it around and it picks up the balls as they go along. It is really fun to use. That I think made that video skyrocket because people were really interested in it.
So I've got kind of one more thing too. So going back to sort of the beginning, when you were down in your creepy basement melting your hands on wax, did you think, a decade later that you'd be in this point right now, being one of the major players in lacrosse?
No, definitely not. Yeah, I actually never even, like a lot of people sit down and say after college I'm going to start a business, and they write up a business plan and, prepare themselves to actually start the business. So I never did any of that. I just always assumed it would be a hobby, and I would get to the end of the summer and stop doing it and go into accounting. And even for a long time, even once I was doing it more full-time, I just felt like eventually the sales would run dry and it would just sort of fizzle out. But people were such big fans of it that it never did. So I never, again, like I said earlier in the podcast, it's easy to sit back at these decisions and look at them and say, wow, that was a really smart business decision. But in the moment, they don't feel that way. It just feels like, hey, this is a thing we're going to do, and never even consider the fact that it might long term have really big benefits. It just sort of was something that we decided in the moment, making the mesh or making the shafts. Looking back, I never said we'll take over the carbon fiber market. I just said, oh, well, this looks like fun. This looks like a good opportunity. We'll just make a shaft for a year and see how it goes. So I think it's a combination of a little bit of foresight, trusting our gut, and luck, obviously.
Okay, nice. I do have one more media question for you. What's been the worst punishment you had to go through?
Well, luckily for me, I think I
you usually have some success. Ones. Yeah, it seems like Mike gets the raw end of the stick a lot of the time.
Yeah, Mike got hammered. He had to do the paintball, which was a terrible punishment, and Brian had to do the one where he had to eat the ingredients of a cake separately. And both of those were awful. They were really bad. Yeah, so I got lucky. The ones I did lose weren't terrible, but they were probably the 2 worst.
Who's the mastermind behind these? You guys just sit around and think them together, or is someone come in and like, hey, dog collars?
Yeah, it was always like a tough line because we had to come up with something that was going to be entertaining, but also that wasn't going to kill us.
Sure,
and
of course.
Every time we asked for suggestions from the fans, they would come up with this crazy stuff. There's no way we can do some of that stuff. But we did take some suggestions. But of course, it's easy for a fan to sit there and say go do this crazy thing is they don't have to do it. You know, they
Sure,
don't have
of
to live with
course.
the consequences.
So, Greg, one last thing here before we let you go. Do you have any big time goals for ECD that you'd like to see? Any like crazy things that you never think would be possible, but you think like maybe just if ECD keeps plugging away that they'll have a chance to do?
Well, I think I keep looking at sponsoring a college team, a top 20 college team would be a lot of fun. I'm not positive how impactful it is from a marketing standpoint with the NCAA regulations, but I just think for us personally, to be able to turn on the TV on Saturdays on ESPNU and see our stuff used by the best guys in the world would be really, really cool. So that's always been a goal, and I know it's expensive, so I'm not sure it makes sense for us. But it was cool to see Epic make that jump. They were a startup brand,
Yep.
more niche like us, and now they've got a handful of college sponsorships, including UNC for the women and Army for the men. And I just looked at that and I was like, man, that's a really cool move, and they get to see their products go out there, maybe win a national championship. You know, that's the dream of every college player. So I think that eventually would be the goal.
Yeah, nice. You got anything else to add for us before we let you go?
No, I think it's just been a lot of fun watching the lacrosse industry grow. It's been a really tumultuous decade. I think if you look at like from before we were making heads, there's maybe 5 companies making heads, and now there's 20 plus. So it's a very, very crowded market, very in demand. You see Adidas, Under Armour, Nike all making full plays, and it's interesting to see an industry where a company our size, a small startup, can compete toe-to-toe with Nike or an Under Armour just because of the way lacrosse is with how players are with their sticks. There's a lot of brand loyalty, and those big brands don't always win out. So it'd be interesting to see in these next couple of years if the industry is going to reconsolidate. I think right now it's a little overcrowded with manufacturers because when that offset patent expired a handful of years ago, that's when we made the Mirage, but that's also when it became a lot easier for all the companies to make a competitive head. And so that's what opened up the door for all these companies to come in. So it's interesting to see if, these 20 people making heads are still around in another 10 years, or if there's another company that comes out of nowhere and swings in and takes all the market share.
Do you think that it's going to be, cream rising to the top, or do you think it's going to be high tide lift all boats kind of situation?
I think eventually it will reconsolidate. That's kind of how, we learned about that in business school too. That's how things ebb and flow. The barriers to entry get low, and a bunch of people enter in. The market gets too segmented, where you've got too many companies who are all handling overhead, and no one's reaching economies of scale, and some have to die off, and then it will reconsolidate. So you saw Warrior fall from grace. When I was growing up, they were the number 1 company, and they're definitely not that anymore. So everything ebbs and flows, and I don't know that I have any specific predictions about who's going to ebb and who's going to flow, but it'll be interesting to see.
Sure, yeah. I think I'm good. I don't know if Hank has one more for you or not. I know we keep saying that, but
last thing, we promise. Division I men's lacrosse. Who do you got winning the championship this year?
ooh.
Well, I think who I want to win the championship is different from who I think will win the championship. I want Penn State to win because I love when a new program wins a championship.
They're going to be pretty strong this year too.
And they're very good. I think if they're going to make it happen, this is the year, because they've still got Eamon O'Keefe, and they lost their number 1 recruit who was going to come in next year. But I just like it when a new team wins. I think it's good for lacrosse. When Denver won, when Yale won, it shows the growth of the game and the diversity at the college level. But if I had to take my guess for who will win, I'll throw Duke out there. Ooh. They've gotten close, and they haven't. I think it could be Duke.
Oh, good defense. Maybe the best midfielder in the country on that team. So should be a good one.
Yeah,
to watch.
we got a Dallas Jesuit guy here on the pod, so he's going to give Nakia Montgomery some shouts out in the old Dallas lacrosse connections. But Duke's a strong pick. Duke's a strong pick. All right, well, cool.
Who are you guys picking?
Oh, I don't know. I'm high on Penn State. I think they're going to be really good. That attack line is otherworldly this year, it seems. I think the rest of the game we'll see if they can get it figured out, but I liked that pick.
Yeah, I was really excited last year at the Final Four because the Penn State fan base was huge. Obviously, it's in Philadelphia, so you're going to get a lot of Penn State fans. And everybody was there out in full force. I was really rooting for them, but they just fell a little short. So hopefully they can pull it out this year. That Big Ten conference, though, is really hard to come out of. And if you don't win it, it's really hard to get one of those one of those at-large bids, because a lot of them are eaten up by the ACC that has no automatic bid. So it makes it a little tough, but you got a very competitive Big Ten.
Yeah.
All right, Greg, thank you so much for joining us today.
thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Greg, we'll talk to you soon.
Have a good one, guys.
All right. See ya.
Thank you again to ECD Greg for coming on the podcast, letting us know a little bit more about the history of his company and where they're headed forward in the future. What do you guys think about the PLL's new expansion draft? What do you think about the new rookies coming in? And where do you think the league's going to go here in the next couple weeks? Let us know on social, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at LacrosseMonkey.
ECD Greg's interview, again, brought to you by LacrosseMonkey. Make sure next time you order on LacrosseMonkey, enter promo code PODCAST10, PODCAST, the number 10, 10, for 10% off your entire order. Some exclusions may apply. Thank you again to ECD Greg. We will be back again for the Monkey Business Podcast, brought to you by LacrosseMonkey on April 3rd. Next week on the MonkeySports Podcast, we are going to have the Goalie Monkeys Outer Roll with Warrior Sports' Kirk Allen, right before the launch of some new Warrior goalie pads. So make sure you get all your hockey goalie friends. Subscribe to the Monkey Sports Podcast. Thank you again for listening, and we will see you again April 3rd.